Welcome into this quarterfinal review edition of Inside the Huddle here on High School Cube News. Brian Chimino back with you with Beth Long of Fox Sports and Scout.com. For the second time this season, Homewood-Flossmoor knocking off preseason number 1 Bolingbrook, this time in the quarterfinals to advance on to the semifinals in a total team effort. Quarterback Bryce Gray throwing for 2 touchdowns, ran for another. And what about the defense for the Vikings, forcing 4 turnovers?
It's always hard to take a team down twice in one season, as we've talked about a little bit before, especially when it's a team full of juniors. Like you mentioned, Bryce Gray, only a junior. Top offensive lineman, Desmond Bland, only a junior. The Harley-Hampton twins, juniors. Think about how crazy this team could be with another year of experience under their belt, and they're already headed into the semifinals. Bolingbrook is no shabby opponent either. Tons of Division I prospects on that team. And after a pretty slow start to the season, getting knocked off, surprised by Hinsdale Central when they were preseason number 1, they've made a pretty great resurgence to get back. Like you mentioned, 4 turnovers seems to be one of the calling cards of this defense. And the Harley-Hampton twins have had a big part in those turnovers, picking off interception after interception each week, even though we love to talk about them on offense. One big win for Bolingbrook's defense, though, was that they held the Twins to under 80 yards rushing combined. I don't think anything close to that has been done all season. Now, Bryce Gray made up for that, but moving forward, HF is going to have to get the Twins going and running for more than 40 yards apiece.
Also in Class 8A, a couple of weeks ago, Barrington wanted respect, and all they did was go out and knock off undefeated Maine South. They wanted more respect this week. They had a chance with number 2, Glenbard West, and did go down. Glenbard West outscoring Barrington in the second half 21-0 to go on to win 28-21.
I mean, I don't know what other words you could use to describe this besides like impossible, improbable. Glenbard West was down in this game. They were down and out. They didn't have the momentum. Barrington was rolling, and then all of a sudden, Sam Brodner, the guy who's been responsible for so many game-changing performances this year for the Hitters, rolled him back into this game. He had 173 yards, 2 touchdowns in 91 seconds. I mean, that's unheard of, especially against a defense as strong as Barrington's. Got to give a shout out, though, to Barrington quarterback Johnny Davidson. He threw for nearly 300 yards on a really tough Glenbard West defense. I mean, their calling card has been their defense. And I mean, I don't even think that anyone could have more momentum going into this than Glenbard West does after that ridiculous comeback.
Last year, Naperville Central in Class A, they had an improbable run to the state championship, entering the playoffs at 6-3 and a number 7 seed. They had to do another upset this week to advance. Did not happen as they go down to the very hot Simeon Wolverines.
When Simeon gets rolling, I'm just not sure how someone's going to stop them. It's like they have so many different facets of the game that can go right. If you can shut down one, they've still got 3 more guys that can run all over you, or Timon Watkins can pass the ball over you. It just doesn't seem probable that people can stop him. Naperville Central's defense is very strong. And in fact, the Wolverines were down 20-6 at one point in this game. That's when they started to get rolling. 28 unanswered points. The defense caused 3 turnovers. Another big defensive performance from Simeon. It seems like in the 8A division, turnovers are turning out to be incredibly important. It's the team's first trip to the semifinals. It was a huge weekend for the public league with Phillips advancing as well as Simeon. And of course, like I said, we have to mention Timon Watkins, 13 for 19, 117 yards, 2 touchdowns running. He had 58 yards on 17 carries. And I mean, when are they going to stop Matt Fleming when he gets a botched punt snap, 25-yard completion on a 4th down, going to punt the ball, and Simeon gets a whole new fresh set of downs. So there's so many key performers, including Dion Earls, Matt Fleming, Timon Watkins on this team. It's just going to be interesting to see them keep rolling forward to the semis.
Let's look down at Class 7A, and when we talk about Providence all year long, it's about Miles Boykin, Vovoda, Hunneford, Warfield. But what about the defense this past week, shutting down Wheaton-Warrenville South?
Louis Vasquez, he had a pick-6 13-yarder. This game was changed the very first play from scrimmage when Wheaton-Warrenville South's leading rusher, J.J. Johnson, just was out. He got hurt, went out. They had to throw their game plan completely out the window, which clearly was, one of the things that didn't go right for Wheaton-Warrenville South. Nonetheless, a fantastic season. They were underdogs for quite some time and came out and played Providence really strong. Miles Boykin did not play. He is questionable for the next week. One of the key performers, too, Mike Markosovic, he had a 48-yard run with 6 minutes left to make it 16-6, and that seemed to seal the deal for the Celtics.
For the past month and a half, the Mount Carmel Caravan have had their backs against the wall. 1 loss in the past 6 weeks, but now they are in the semifinals after shutting down Player of the Year candidate Liam Morrissey and Lincoln Way East.
Who can stop the Caravan? They're playing Mount Carmel football right now, and they started off the year rough. It wasn't Mount Carmel football. They lost a ton of Division I talent, including Enoch Smith, Stephen Richardson, who's at Minnesota, and he's already starting as a freshman. Some really talented kids were on that state championship squad last year. Now, though, they're rolling, they're together, they're certainly really not missing any of those D1 guys at all. They have several of their own. 5 sacks for the defense. Andrew Guerra, he had 8 tackles and 2 sacks. Kevin Thurman, he's a Division I prospect, 7 tackles, 1 sack. They capitalized on miscues from Lincoln Way East. A roughing the kicker call resulted in a touchdown that extended a drive. A pass interference call resulted in a touchdown that also extended the drive. That's great coaching to be able to capitalize so well on miscues like that. It's no doubt, their Coach Linty has led the Caravan to he's had such a fantastic career there. Also, quarterback Anthony Thompson had a great day, 119 yards, he went 8 for 12, threw for a touchdown, ran 2 touchdowns in. The Caravan's running game, their running backs, A.J. Lewis, Anthony Reese, didn't have the best of days, but Thompson more than made up for it.
And that'll set up a dynamic semifinal matchup that we'll preview later in the week on a new edition of Inside the Huddle. Before we get out of here, Lamont in the state semifinals, and also a feature on this week's MVP segment.
This week's MVP is Flynn Nagel. He's kind of the do-it-all man for Lamont, and they're undefeated in the season, kind of quietly, surging up in that top 25. He had a really big play this past week at the DB spot, just knocking down a potential touchdown that would have made the difference for Richards. In the end, Lamont came out and won. 11 catches, 76 yards, 40 yards on 4 carries as well, so he is just a huge part of their offense, and he's this week's MVP.
So check back later in the week for the new MVP segment and a semifinal state preview edition of Inside the Huddle. For Beth Long, I'm Brian Chimino. We'll see you guys later.